Philipp Otto Runge was a singular voice in German Romanticism, a painter who sought to make color itself sing. Today, we meet the artist who imagined daybreak as a cosmic revelation, who painted tender family portraits with the intimacy of a confessional, and who mapped color into a spiritual geometry. Runge's best known image, the radiant figure of morning, is more than a picture, it's a program. Light and hue arranged like a hymn. He moved between intimate portraiture, his wife Pauline, his children, friends, and ambitious allegories. The Tageszeiten, or times of day, where morning, day, evening, and night become human presences. He was also a theorist, sketching a color sphere that anticipated later ideas about color harmony. His scenes are quiet but intense, devotional but modern, rooted in Northern portrait tradition and reaching toward the metaphysical. In other words, Runge is both the painter of a domestic Germany and an inventor of a visual cosmology. If you love romantic poetry turned into paint, or the history of color itself, you're in for a revelation. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps us keep creating more educational videos like this one. Philipp Otto Runge was born in 1777 in Wolgast in Pomerania and trained in Dresden and Copenhagen before returning to Hamburg, where he worked and taught. Early on, he showed a sensitivity to faces and interiors that set him apart from purely historical painters of his time. His self-portraits reveal a man attentive to expression and light. Look at the studied calm of his bust-length likenesses. They are exercises in temperament as much as technique, intimate rehearsals for the larger allegories to come. Runge's circle included poets and thinkers. Romanticism in Germany was a conversation across mediums, and Runge's studio became a place where portraiture, literature, and color theory met. Portrait commissions of civic leaders, families, and patrons paid the bills and refined his skill in modeling flesh, fabric, and mood. Those early years established the dual character of his career: the intimate portrait painter and the visionary composer of spiritual scenes. Runge's portraits are often described as compassionate. His portraits of Pauline, his wife, are striking for their restraint and warmth. In images like Pauline in a green dress and the larger composition of his wife and son, we see a tenderness that balances formal composition with lived detail. The set of a hand, the weight of a gaze, the gentle fall of fabric. The family groupings, including the celebrated Wir drei grouping and paintings of the Hülsenbeck children, display his mastery of arrangement, how to place figures so that relationships are readable at a glance. The Hülsenbeck children, for example, are playful yet composed. Runge captured childhood with dignity rather than sentimentality. Even his copies and replicas, or versions made by followers, testify to how influential these family images became in Hamburg's cultural memory. Through portraiture, Runge explored psychology, how identity is formed in relation to others, how intimacy can be framed by light. At the heart of Runge's achievement is the Tageszeiten series, the 4 allegories of morning, day, evening, and night, and above all, his visionary morning. Unlike a simple landscape, morning is an apparition, a luminous female figure surrounded by cherubic putti, a processional of light ascending. The Great Morning, sometimes reproduced as Der Morgen, became an emblem of Runge's ambition to fuse color, form, and myth. He worked in variants, small studies, a larger Great Morning, and detailed friezes. These variations show his concern with scale and reproduction, with how an image translates from intimate panel to public statement. But the series is more than pictorial drama. It's a theory made visible. Runge believed color could systematize feeling. He sketched and wrote about a color sphere that tried to explain relations of hue, saturation, and value, an early intuitive color science. Day, evening, and night complete the cycle. Day is blithe and bright, evening brings melancholy, and night gathers mystery. Together, the pieces read as a ritual for the senses, a program of experience rendered in paint. Runge did not confine himself to portraits and allegory. He painted religious and narrative scenes, including a moving Rest on the Flight into Egypt and the poetic Lesson of the Nightingale. In the Rest on the Flight, we find a quieter devotional palette and compositional economy. Figures settle, a campfire glows, the night encroaches. Runge's hand translates scripture into human stillness. The Lesson of the Nightingale is almost folkloric, an intimate scene where nature and instruction overlap, where a child learns from a bird. These works show his interest in storytelling that privileges mood over spectacle. He favored scenes that could be read slowly, that revealed their meaning through small gestures, a mother's hand, an attentive child, a bird frozen in song. In both religious and domestic narratives, he privileges presence and pause. Runge's reputation as a theorist is as important as his reputation as a painter. He developed a system, often summarized as a color sphere, to organize hues around a three-dimensional model. While not a scientist in the modern sense, Runge was serious in his attempts to codify how colors relate emotionally and harmonically. He wrote treatises and filled sketchbooks with color studies, gradations, mixtures, symbolic correspondences. Technically, Runge worked with a fine touch, delicate glazing, careful underdrawing, and a controlled palette. His use of light is not dramatic, Baroque illumination, but a softer, inner radiance. Look at details from Morning, the way light bathes faces, how gradations of pink and gold move from the center outwards. That subtle modulation creates a sense of the spiritual that is chromatic as much as compositional. Artists later cited Runge for these ideas. His thinking about color would echo in 19th century debates on harmony and in later color theory. Runge died young in 1810, but his influence persisted. His blending of intimate portraiture with overarching allegory helped shape German art between classicism and romanticism. He knew the work of Northern masters and the contemporaneous philosophical currents. Goethe's writings on color were circulating, and Runge's work entered that conversation. In Hamburg and beyond, he became a touchstone for painters seeking to unite feeling and form. Later collectors and exhibitions resurrected his work when 19th century Germany searched for cultural roots. Art historians now read Runge both as a craftsman of delicate portraiture and as a pioneer of color thinking. His sketches and theory notebooks are as revealing as the finished canvases. In practical terms, Runge also trained students and left an example of how an artist could be both a technical virtuoso and an intellectual experimenter. That dual legacy, painter and theoretician, is why we still turn to him. A few curious details. Runge painted multiple versions and studies of the same subject, a working method that shows how he refined an idea over time. Some of his most ambitious projects were unfinished. He died before he could realize every plan. Hamburg preserves many of his works, but copies and later replicas circulated, helping spread his visual language. He also worked on small lithographs and designs. Prints of Morning circulated and extended his reach beyond elite salons. Another point, his intimate family scenes were not mere private commissions. They were statements about bourgeois identity at the time, about how family life and moral feeling were visually represented in early 19th century Germany. Finally, his color sphere notebooks read today like a mix of science, poetry, and art instruction, an artifact of romantic interdisciplinary thinking. Philipp Otto Runge remains a painter of paradoxes, intimate yet cosmic, technical yet mystical, rooted in portrait tradition while reaching for a universal grammar of color. He painted faces we feel we know and allegories we feel we need. The morning, day, evening, and night remain invitations, not to a single doctrine, but to looking, to notice hue, to let a quiet domestic gesture become a vessel for meaning. If you walk away with one image, let it be the way Runge uses color as language, as theology, as emotional architecture. To appreciate Runge is to watch how a palette can hold a world. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this portrait of Runge, consider exploring his studies and sketches. They reveal as much about his mind as his finished canvases.